Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Today is a big day for music movie news and also biographies, and the first story covers both. It was just announced that Film District, a small distributor that's having a lot of success though with some of its films, has just locked down the Elton John biography Rocketman for $10 million, and it's written by the guy who did Billy Elliot, but they haven't signed a director. However, it looks like they are about to sign an actor because Tom Hardy is circling the project. Now, I feel that's a bad idea. Why? Because I think that Tom Hardy, as much as he's trying to fight it, is a very traditionally attractive actor. He's a pretty boy actor, very talented actor, mind you. But he has to factor in his appearance. And I think that when I hear about him taking a role like this, I feel it's only to try and the main impetus is maybe so much not to play Elton John, but to counteract the mainstream image I think he feels Hollywood is trying to thrust upon him. I feel a better choice for this. I don't know if anybody saw this, is Behind the Candelabra on HBO. Matt Damon would make a great Elton John. Jake Gyllenhaal. I think there are a lot of actors who have more of the look of Elton John, because Elton John was not a traditionally attractive person when he was younger. I mean, he has tremendous charisma. He comes across wonderfully, but he doesn't have that matinee idol look. And I would hate to see that imposed on him, because I think you're not getting you don't understand his rise to success and what he did if you're having, because I think it will just be like, oh well, everyone hired Elton John because he was hot. And so I feel sorry for Tom Hardy that he has this problem, and I think he does do, Bane was a good choice. But although my sister would always joke, she'd be like, who would cover up Tom Hardy's face? So, and I think to some degree, that's true. So I think it would be great to see a really good Elton John biography. I think he's an icon, obviously, but I hope that this film doesn't disappoint. I think there have been a rash of biographies lately that seem like they belong on television, or I think that this is the problem I've been having a lot of biographies. I've been talking about this, and I had a problem with this with Hitchcock and a couple of films, that I feel that they try and tell everyone's story that's involved. They don't just tell the one. They don't pick a side, and therefore it becomes almost like a TV film because they're hitting too many marks and they can't really delve into like personal motivation. So if this is just Elton John's story, perhaps it could be really good. And of course, we all know Billy Elliot was a really impressive piece of work that's lived beyond even its original theatrical release to become a very successful musical and so on. So that's the first news story. Tom Hardy might be Elton John. What do you think? The second news story is that Annie continues to take shape over at Sony. Now, first of all, a lot of you, when I said that Jamie Foxx was going to play the Daddy Warbucks character, renamed Benjamin Stax, which I think is just fantastic. That makes me want to see the movie alone. A lot of you wondered, well, what about Jay-Z? I thought he was going to be in the movie. Jay-Z might have a cameo, but Jay-Z is behind the scenes on this. He's the producer, and he's also doing the music. So he's not going to be in the film, which I think is, fine. I to some degree, I respect the fact that Jay-Z doesn't feel he needs to do everything. I commend him for being like, what? I excel in the music industry, and I'm going to only work in film when I can bring that to the table, like he did with Gatsby. But the other big news is that it looks like Sandra Bullock is going to be Miss Hannigan. I think that's brilliant. I think that's going to really help expand the demographics for the film. I think Sandra Bullock, it's a great role for her. I'll be interested to see Sandra Bullock sing. And I think that when you wouldn't think of her for the role, but when her name is mentioned, it just seems perfect. I think she could do something really funny with it, and it'll be nice to see her kind of like break out of her comfort zone. Because I saw the trailer for The Heat last night when I saw This Is the End. Great movie, by the way. BTT Crew review coming on Friday, but I really recommend you don't miss it in theaters. It was a lot of fun to go and see it, as well as funny. But I saw a trailer for The Heat in front of it, and I was like, Miss Congeniality was a great film, Sandra Bullock, but stop trying to remake it. You need to go somewhere else, because every film she's made that's tried to be like that pales in comparison to the original. But so that's great. I think Annie is shaping up to be a mega blockbuster hit. I'm very excited about it. Third story is a little bit of a disappointment, and that's that the Ashton Kutcher, Steve Jobs biopic has finally gotten a release date, which is going to be August 16th. This film is made not with any cooperation from Apple or the Jobs family. It's totally personally financed by a very wealthy, eccentric individual who wants to get into the movie business. And of course, as you know, Ashton Kutcher has been cast as Steve Jobs, which I feel, it's really unfortunate. I mean, I'm glad this guy has so much money and he cares about the film industry enough to get his own movie off the ground. And I think on paper that seems like a really inspirational story, because it's great to see someone working outside of the Hollywood system. But when someone, but I mean, because he's mimicking the worst parts of the Hollywood system. You know, he has like stunt casting, an actor who's not, I think, really, you know, he's pretty good at comedy, but I've seen a clip for this film and it looks really weak. And, you know, I think that Steve Jobs deserves better than this. I think he changed America, he changed the world, and he changed technology. And he had to overcome a really bad period of time where Bill Gates really edged him out, and you know, and what he was victorious for a while. So I just don't feel that Ashton Kutcher has the emotional depth to pull this off at all. And anyone who would think that he does and cast him, I don't think has the ability to portray the story either. So I'm sad that this is the first thing going out, and I hope that it doesn't discourage other more talented people in Hollywood from trying to tell the story, which is, I think, really important. So, the audience question of the day. Someone yesterday pointed out, they said, well, you know, what about Battleship doing, you know, pretty well overseas? And what about the overseas market in general? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I was looking around through Man of Steel reviews, as everybody is, and I came across New York magazines. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, I'm sorry, Man of Steel fans. This must be a really tough week for you. This was another negative review. Man of Steel dropped to 60% this morning on Rotten Tomatoes. I believe if it goes 1% lower, it'll be in the rotten category. So, dark days for Warner Brothers and Christopher Nolan. But anyway, so this journalist, this critic over at New York Magazine, he has said he did not particularly enjoy the film. And then he brought up he took an interesting tangent, which I thought was really good. He mentioned Lynda Obst's latest book. And Lynda Obst, if you're not familiar who she is, for a period of time, she was a very successful female producer in Hollywood. Made a lot of romantic comedies. I think her last big hit was How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which, you know, the Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson film. And she'd written a book previously, but she's written a new book. And she had some very interesting insight as to why Hollywood is making so many big blockbuster movies. And she said that's because, well, American audiences have kind of passed on 3D and they've gotten over it. Foreign audiences, such as the big markets of China, Japan, and Russia, I think those are the biggest overseas markets right now, they're still having a love affair with big blockbusters and special effects in 3D. So the Hollywood studios, unfortunately, are like, you know what, America, our U.S. audiences, you're not as easy to please as these other, you know, foreign film goers who are just being exposed to this technology, and perhaps these films translate better to other languages because, you know, they're not as dense. But we're just going to try to appeal to that. I feel that's a little bit, you know, I can't argue against making money. I mean, if it's easy money, I think a studio would be foolish not to pick it up. But I would say, I think that this is ultimately, you know, they're poisoning themselves, they're poisoning the pool, and eventually I think this is going to catch up with them. This is like cheating. This is like an easy fix. And I think that eventually, I'm sure that, because, you know, good storytelling is universal. I'm sure that foreign audiences will eventually catch up to this. And also, I think all three of those countries have really emerging film markets of their own. They're really moving ahead leaps and bounds, and Hollywood is going to get outpaced by them because they're going to hopefully do better with story. So it's frustrating to me, but I understand where it's coming from. And Lynda Obst is taking her own advice, as fascinatingly, this romantic comedy producer is one of the main three producers, along with Steven Spielberg and Christopher Nolan, on Interstellar. What a fascinating trio. So I think that's really cool. I think Jessica Chastain just signed on for that movie with Matthew McConaughey. So maybe Lynda Obst will make sure there's a good female role there. So interesting stuff. Write down your own thoughts below about the 3 stories of the day, and also what you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and also any questions you might have. But always, thanks for watching. Bye.